T Energy, and you are listening to Slam Fam Wrestling Network. Welcome to the family, Mark. Family. Oh.
Episode 75 of Off the Chest of Timothy Regal. We have been here now for 75 straight weeks. We are 25 episodes away from episode 100. I don't quite know what we're going to do for 100 episodes. I, of course, am the most famous man in pro wrestling in the state of Iowa, Timothy Regal, not joined by Alex McCarthy, because as of about 24 hours ago, approximately, Alex and the beautiful Margaret Adele, of the Bells in a Cell podcast, are officially husband and wife, and they are on their honeymoon. So, joining me this week, you've heard him on the podcast a couple of times, good friend of the Slam Fam Wrestling Network, Adam Gardner, my buddy Adam. Adam, how you doing, man?
Not too bad.
So, I guess we really, again, I'll tell you right now, folks, we don't have a format. I don't know where this episode's going to go. I guess I'm going to let everybody know we are recording this on Sunday right before Extreme Rules, so don't know what's going to happen, but obviously major news, and I've got a theory, and I think what we'll do is I'll kind of get this theory, but obviously the major big news that broke as of this morning, Hulk Hogan reinstated into the WWE Hall of Fame, added back to WWE.com. I'm really hoping this means they'll re-add Hulk Hogan's Rocket Wrestling to the WWE Network, because it was awesome while it was there for a few weeks. Adam, obviously, the return is imminent at this point, I think.
It's bound to happen. I'm guessing probably Mania.
You think Mania? I don't think they're going to wait for
maybe
Mania.
SummerSlam?
Maybe not even that long. I actually have a theory.
Raw?
Nope, I actually have a theory. I'm not going to say how the match is going to end, but I think possibly tonight, Rusev is beating down on AJ Styles. Real American hits. Out comes Hulk Hogan to make the big save. To make his triumphant conquering return.
Where are they at tonight?
They are in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
They're in the Steel City, so...
Well, it could go one of two ways for who's going to come in and make the save. They're in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that where John Cena's from?
Yeah, you can always see that. John Cena's from Boston.
Is he from Boston?
I mean, Cena's always a possibility, but not. The rumors are that Hogan actually flew into Cleveland today, which I believe is about an hour and a half drive from Pittsburgh. So, could they do one of those gimmicks where they flew him into Cleveland and then had him take a limo and hide him in a trailer until it's time for him to come out? It's interesting to say. Now, there's obviously going to be a lot of feedback here, negative, positive, about whether people want Hogan back in the WWE. You know, people make mistakes, and he did a stupid thing, and he got caught on video, but he didn't, how do I politically say this? It wasn't like he committed a crime. Unfortunately, he did something dumb, then he did something he shouldn't do, and I hope he's learned from it. He's apologized for it. Obviously, I think the Gawker trial really made him kind of reassess himself. He's been a lot more, not corporate, what's the word I'm looking for? He's been a lot more friendly as far as, putting himself out there.
Oh, yeah.
I think hopefully he's grown from this, and as a professional wrestling fan, until the day that he leaves this earth, Hulk Hogan should always have a place in the business, in my opinion.
Well, for a long time, he was the business.
And I mean, I don't care what anybody says, whether you like him personally or not. If Real American hits during Extreme Rules or SummerSlam or WrestleMania, wherever he is, I'm gonna pop, because I mean, I probably may not be a wrestling fan if not for Hulk Hogan. That's the honest to goodness truth. As a kid who grew up when I started watching wrestling in late '86, early '87, Hulk Hogan was professional wrestling.
You know what I'd love to see? Just have him come out as Thunderlips.
Hey, maybe it's not gonna be Hulk Hogan tonight. Maybe we're gonna get the return of Mr. America, brother.
Mr. America, yes.
The long-awaited return of Mr. America, brother.
Can't forget about Mr. America.
That'd be something, wouldn't it?
Oh God. That's not Hulk Hogan. That's Mr. America.
Was that not one of the? I don't care. That episode of SmackDown to me is one of my favorites because it was so hilarious. Where Vince showed up and he's like, I'm here to see Mr. America. And they did the thing where Stephanie goes in to meet Mr. America because they did the whole thing where she signed him sight unseen, and she walks out with a look on her face of, oh no, what have I done? And then she's like, Dad, you really don't want to do that, Dad. No, I'm going to the ring right now. I'm going to call him out. I hear he's great. I hear he's 7 feet tall. And then out comes Mr. America. And
I love the Attitude Era.
Oh my God. Is that Sean Stasiak, Canyon, and Hugh Morris? Good Lord. What the hell? We're watching. I got the Invasion pay-per-view on in the background, folks.
Well, who better than Canyon?
Who better than Canyon? Nobody. Unfortunately, Canyon no longer with us. But okay, count the number of times I accidentally say Alex on this podcast. Adam. We both start with A, so there is an issue there. Adam, you wanted. What did you want to talk about? Because I know you had some things you wanted to discuss.
WCW's music, how they changed it just enough.
Wrestling music in general, because of course I'm going to the Starcast convention. They actually just announced this week that the legendary Jim Johnson gonna be in attendance and do a special behind the music panel with Sean Mooney, and kind of interested to see how that goes. Of course, Jim Johnson. That guy deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, and it unfortunately sounds like there's kind of a weird thing right now between him and WWE, so I don't know if it's going to happen. But, obviously now it's mostly...
You can never say never, though.
It's CFO $ doing all the music now, and I mean, they do great music. If Alex was here right now, he would yell at me to silence my phone and be professional.
I did that already. I silenced my phone as soon as I sat down.
Yeah, the Cubs are playing, it's important.
Who cares?
Hey, how's the Cardinals coaches going these days, Adam?
You know what? That needed to happen.
That's
okay
two.
with it.
I caught myself with that. We'll call that two. No, you were talking about WCW music the other day and how, hey, we're gonna be edgy and cool we're gonna have versions of popular songs, but we're just gonna change one note of the song.
What was it? DDP was totally Smells Like Teen Spirit.
DDP's was Smells Like Teen Spirit. Of course, the biggest ripoff one was Jeff Jarrett coming out to what was obviously Cowboy by Kid Rock.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
There were so many.
And then, of course, the ones that weren't ripoffs were basically stuff that they pulled from the Turner audio files. Like, I know Chris Jericho said his entrance music was like basketball highlight film music number one. Basically, just stuff from they would use for Atlanta Hawks video packages.
WWE did that too, because Hardcore Holly's music was used on so many different packages.
Oh yeah.
It was background music on Spike. It was background music on another sports show.
The funniest one is a lot of people don't realize that the Hardy Boys music actually was not WWE music. It was just some random piece of music that they found. And I remember watching the first episode of Wrestling Society X, and that was a piece of music they actually used for highlights. It's like, why are they using the Hardy Boys
entrance music? That does not get enough appreciation.
Huh?
Wrestling Society X.
Dude, okay, so here's the thing, and there's actually a whole fan theory out there too. And I wish I could know right where from ready to pull this up. There's actually a fan theory that Wrestling Society X and Lucha Underground actually exist in the same universe. Because to me, literally, the first time I watched Lucha Underground, I said, so basically, this is what Wrestling Society X really should have been from the get-go. And I mean, literally down to the point where you have some of the same guys in it, Joey Ryan, Mr. Cisco, I think Cortez Castro.
Pretty sure they won't be able to get Tyler Black.
No, something tells me neither member. Well, they might get one half of Team DIFH right now, but no. Tyler, that one kid from Team DIFH, Tyler Black, he's probably not available. Then you got you had Austin Aries. I'm trying to. There are a couple other Scorpio Sky. There's a couple other guys from Wrestling Society X that are still wrestling. That you could potentially get it, but no, there's a whole fan theory that they're actually connected. By the way, did you realize that also Lucha Underground also exists in the Robert Rodriguez film universe?
Does it really?
Yes. And the key to my theory, my actual support of this, they had Danny Trejo sitting in the crowd, and the thing is, every time they showed Danny Trejo for like 5 episodes, they never referred to him as Danny Trejo. They actually, every time they paid him, they referred to him as Machete. So,
that would be awesome.
Basically, it was Machete was sitting in the crowd.
I hope that happens. That'd be awesome.
I would love to have them do an angle where Machete actually comes in. Well, they had Lorenzo Lamas playing a city councilman on the show. They've actually had actors and actresses that were in Robert Rodriguez movies that have appeared in roles as part of the, obviously, the best one now, the guy that plays Dario Cueto now playing his own father, and it's in the traditional vein of a Robert Rodriguez thing where they're not even attempting to hide that it's the same actor. It's painfully obvious.
Gotta love wrestling.
Just like whatever. How many roles did Cheech Marin play in From Dusk Till Dawn? Like 4 or 5.
A lot.
Yeah. But now, yeah. So how did we get to there from wrestling music? I don't know. But
music. And then you brought up Society X, and then
I know you wanted to talk
wrestling.
You wanted to talk wrestling movies at one point.
There's a lot of them.
What is your favorite wrestling movie?
Movie about wrestling or like a biographical?
Either or.
Well, I mean, as a kid, growing up, No Holds Barred, of course.
Well, No Holds Barred was super cheesy. And we were on the subject of wrestling movies because there's a new documentary out called 350 Days, which our buddy Doug Ritter got to see down in Nashville, but unfortunately, no theater here played. Sucks, because I was actually off that night. And
DVD will be out soon enough, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to pick the DVD up at Walmart for $10, but it kind of sucks that Rave Cinemas picks and chooses what Fathom events they actually want to show now. So they didn't show that one. But I did hear it was a good documentary. I heard there's a few people on there that, like Jimmy Snuka actually is on there, which, yeah.
When was that filmed? Because
they actually filmed it over the course of about 5 years, and it's basically guys talking all about how in the 80s and early 90s, and the reason it's called 350 Days is they were on the road 350 days a year. They barely ever got to go home, which led to the amounts of drug usage and, alcohol and various other activities. In certain cases, maybe somebody may have murdered someone.
No, come on. He was never proven guilty on that.
Yeah, Jimmy. No, they didn't try him because he was near death.
Unfit to stand trial.
Yeah.
I believe what they said.
Exactly.
But other wrestling movies,
I
would say, The Wrestler, of course, Mickey Rourke.
The Wrestler. I mean, it's so. Obviously, Darren Aronofsky did a very accurate portrayal, very accurately. I'll say the term I'm going to use is accurately dramatized portrayal of what it's like to be a wrestler when you had your moment in the sun and you And I mean, there are some guys from the 80s that I've even been in the presence of that kind of fill that vein where maybe they didn't save their money right or whatever reason, and they're struggling to hang on in 2018, trying to make money. They'll do conventions or whatever. Unfortunately, I think as we've gone on, the business is getting better about it. You don't see it as much as you used to, but yeah, there's a few guys out there that definitely are very reminiscent to Randy the Ram from The Wrestler.
They've had their redemption.
Yeah.
Jake the Snake.
Well, Jake the Snake.
Scott Hall.
And I'm kind of wary of actually naming certain people's names because I don't want people to get bad opinions of certain people. But there are a few out there that I know that do struggle. Obviously, and I mean, some guys may have traumatic brain injuries. I know. I guess I'll talk about Perry Saturn. Saturn, for anybody who hasn't followed his story, has some pretty rough traumatic brain injury aftermath, some post-concussion syndrome. He's having a really rough time as of late. Definitely doesn't remember certain things. There is, like, if you want to look it up, I know there is a GoFundMe to help Saturn because he pretty much due to his brain can't do a lot of things, and that's unfortunate. Did you ever see the movie Body Slam?
Probably once.
Dirk Benedict, he was a rock and roll concert promoter, and got into pro wrestling, and it has, like, I think it's got like Jesse Ventura, Roddy Piper, a bunch of people.
I think
it's a movie made in the early '80s. It's completely cheesy, but it's funny for what it is. It's one of those so funny it's kind of good movies. That and what's the Henry Winkler one? The Champion.
You know, I can't remember for the life of me what that was called.
Oh God, what is that movie? Henry Winkler. I'm gonna Google this one.
I can't remember what it's called. I know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
Henry Winkler wrestling movie.
This is why you do research before you have a...
Yeah, well, we didn't really talk about it.
This is why you do formats, kids.
Oh, shoot. The one and only.
Ah!
Yeah. The one and only. Carl Reiner. It's a movie made in 1978. Carl Reiner actually directed it. This is actually a movie that my father and mother used on me as a kid to try to show me that wrestling was fake.
Everyone tried to tell you wrestling was fake. Who cares?
It's basically about a young man who becomes a pro wrestler after going through a bunch of different jobs. He creates a character known as the Lover. Basically becomes like the most hated guy in wrestling. But try to see, like, Ed Begley Jr.'s in it. I don't think there were any actual wrestlers in it, but I remember the first time he gets into a wrestling ring, he gets put against this crazy Indian guy who pulls a knife on him.
Oh God.
If you ever, the one and only with Henry Winkler was probably one of the might have been one of the first. Probably not the first pro wrestling movie. I think there was some. I know Freddie Blassie played himself in a couple movies like in the '60s. And of course, if you go to Mexico, there were wrestling movies for the longest time with El Santo and Blue Demon, and basically doing spaghetti western versions of themselves.
There was what was that one with Roddy Piper? The Masked Saint.
Masked Saint was one that came out a few years ago.
Actually, a very good movie. 2016, I believe.
Well, here's the thing with Masked Saint. Masked Saint is basically the real life version of Nacho Libre.
Yeah.
Well, I would say real life version, a more serious version. It's because they're both based.
True story.
They're both based on the same story. They just made a comedic version of it for Nacho Libre, and then they did a serious faith-based movie of it based on the same story for the movie The Masked Saint.
The Masked Saint was really good. I think it was one of Piper's last things.
In the realm of faith-based movies, it's probably one of the better ones, honestly. And when I say faith-based movies, it's the stuff made by like Pure Flix and stuff that you find in the last new release rack at Walmart. But there's quite a few of them. But no, Masked Saint is a pretty good one as far as that goes. I've seen the movie. It's decent. It's worth if you haven't watched it. I know it was on Netflix for a while. I don't know if it's still there.
That's where I caught it at.
If you haven't seen it, one of Roddy Piper's last movies that he did. Great flick. What about Zombies versus Pro Wrestlers?
You can't talk about
Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, I should say.
Not a great film, but I love it.
It's oh god. If you have not gone out and seen Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, definitely go check that out. I don't think it's available, unfortunately, on any streaming platform, but I'm sure that's something you can get on like a Vudu or iTunes for like $5.
I'm sure you can find it somewhere.
It's one of those damned movies. It's so bad. It's funny, but like Roddy's in it. Who else is in it? Like Ted DiBiase.
I think Hacksaw's in it.
Hacksaw. Really look that one.
A lot of other guys like that from the old heyday era, but
yeah, Wrestlers versus
Regal uses his Google powers again.
Zombies. Hey, Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Roddy Piper, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Matt Hardy, and Remy Sky.
Pre-broken Matt Hardy.
Yeah, Shane Douglas, Tara Patrick is in this movie. Kurt Angle, Thomas Rodman. There's a few guys.
Shane Douglas was in it.
Huh?
Shane Douglas.
Yeah, Shane Douglas is in it. It's pretty amazing. Famous pro wrestlers are pitted against hordes of undead when they unknowingly walk into a death trap. The franchise Shane Douglas accidentally kills a wrestler in the ring. The wrestler's brother Angus seeks revenge by surrendering his soul to an ancient demon to gain the power to raise the undead. Angus then pays for a private show at an empty prison to lure Douglas and his friend Roddy Piper into a death trap. Now, if that doesn't sound like an amazing, amazing movie, I don't know what is, folks. Of course,
Fun fact about that movie, Piper's part was originally written for Mick Foley.
Really? Hey, come on. We can't talk about Roddy Piper movies if we don't talk about Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Well, that was a good one, but when you talk about Piper movies, you gotta bring up They Live.
No. Hell Comes to Frogtown is not a good movie. Hell Comes to Frogtown is a goddamn horrible movie.
I mean, that's not the one everyone thinks of, though. It's They Live.
Everybody thinks that's part of what makes it funny is everybody thinks about They Live, and of course I'm going to bring up Hell Comes to Frogtown, which was the one he did right after that. Who all was in Hell? Who? I think he's pretty much the only actor in it. But if you, again, Hell Comes to Frogtown, a movie that's definitely worth going and checking out. Let's see, what's the description of Hell Comes to Frogtown? After a nuclear war, the survivors are divided between horribly mutated beings who live in desolate reservations and fertile women who are searching for scarce viral men in order to multiply and start a new human society.
Well, that sounds amazing.
And Roddy Piper's name in the movie is Sam Hell.
You know, hearing the description of that movie, that sounds like something Trauma would do.
It looks like a trauma film in a while.
But if we're talking about wrestling movies and / documentaries, you got to bring up Beyond the Mat.
Beyond the Mat. Okay, so I remember going and watching Beyond the Mat when it was playing in the Davenport Brady Street Cinema.
Oh God.
There's a blast from the past for Quad City people. The Brady Street Cinema. So I went and see this. Actually, it was like the last night it played. They played it for like 2 weeks. There were me and 2 other guys in there watching the movie. But it's literally probably a documentary made and released during one of the biggest times for pro wrestling. And it's a movie that I guarantee you Vince McMahon probably wishes he never did. Well, he wishes he would have done it, but he wishes he would have got like creative control over the aspects of him in the movie. he signed away a complete release without thinking about it at the time, and then of course wrestling got huge. That's what WCW was actually approached to be Beyond the Mat, and they actually didn't want to sign the release.
Well, that's WCW's fault.
But I mean, and I'm going to almost automatically assume that everybody that is listening to this podcast has probably seen Beyond the Mat.
It's probably one of the best wrestling documentaries out there.
Actually, if you haven't, I'm pretty sure Beyond the Mat is actually available for free on the Fight TV app.
It's really good.
Yeah. It's got actual footage from ECW, footage from WWE during the Attitude Era, footage from of the Royal Rumble. There's a part of that movie that you like to bring up a lot.
Mick Foley getting his head beat in with a chair.
And of course, the other aspect of that part of that movie.
The fact that you have a big thing for Noelle Foley, and she was like 2 years old in that movie.
Adam always likes. What are we up to now? 4. Take a drink every time I call Adam Alex during this episode. Adam likes to bring up whenever I talk about how amazingly hot Noelle Foley is. That she was the little girl crying her eyes out and Beyond the Mat, watching her dad get his brains beat in with a steel chair. I think, of course, that hey, if it wasn't for Beyond the Mat, we wouldn't have the legend that is Dennis Stamp.
Oh Lord.
The late great Dennis Stamp, God rest his soul. He recently passed away. Actually worked in AIW of all places the last couple of years. But I know our buddy Dr. Daniel C. Rockingham is a big Dennis Stamp fan. Actually, recently posted a picture with a member of the Slam Fam, Cat Carter, wearing a Book Dennis Stamp T-shirt. Hey, I don't do any tricks. I just jump.
Yeah, it was a good movie. I love that. Dennis Stamp gave us.
You never know when your next match is gonna be.
But what other movie? Oh, former World Heavyweight Champion David Arquette's movie. Ready to Rumble.
How do we not bring up Ready to Rumble yet?
Ready to Rumble.
Dude, so did you see the announcement for St. Louis Anarchy Wrestling?
No.
David Arquette is going to get in the ring with Matt Fitchett.
Oh my God, I want to go.
Because I showed you the clip for Pancakes and Pile Drivers, where he came out during the match. Yeah, David Arquette, because they did this whole thing, Davey Vega and Matt Fitchett did this whole thing called Ready to Rumble 2, where Fitchett was supposed to be playing the character that was supposed to be Brody's son. And apparently this all started this, and now, yes, in St. Louis, I believe sometime in August, Matt Fitchett is going to get in the ring with former WCW World Heavyweight Champion David Arquette.
Ugh. There's a Hall of Fame name right there, David Arquette. He's former champion.
Oh God. Let's not and say we did.
I love that movie. Come on, how do you not love that movie?
Dude, it's. I remember me and Zach Dale going to see Ready to Rumble the day the movie came out. Like, we literally, like, on a Friday, we were probably there for the 5 or 7 o'clock show, whatever, and maybe like 10 people were in this movie. It's like, oh God, this movie's gonna bomb so freaking bad. It's so cheesy. It's
very cheesy. It's wrestling.
And I mean, come on, you get the amazingness of Oliver Platt playing Jimmy King, the Scott Conn. You got such a great the people that got to be in this movie as actors. Rose McGowan looks smoking ass hot in that movie. I will say that.
When doesn't she look smoking?
Of course, part of the problem with this movie is we're led to believe that this kid is such a nerd and so into wrestling that he can't shut his brain off, that when Rose McGowan takes her top off, he hits her with a frying pan. I'm sorry. I don't care. I might be the biggest wrestling fan in the world.
Foreign objects.
I'm not yelling foreign objects and hitting somebody with a frying pan if Rose McGowan takes her shirt off in front of me. Or any woman for that matter. That's the problem with that movie is, to me, it made fun of wrestling fans too much. They basically so WCW makes this movie and makes their target audience look like a bunch of idiots.
Well, that movie gave us one big thing. David Arquette is champion.
Well, I mean, we'll get to that in a minute. But you can't make a movie about a pro wrestling company. I mean, granted, if you want to make a fictitious movie based on WCW wrestlers, but you basically have these two guys that make wrestling fans look like complete idiots. Now, granted, believe me, I've met a lot of wrestling fans that, for better or worse, are kind of like Brody and Sean. Sean is the other kid's name. But most wrestling fans don't want to be made to feel like we're a bunch of idiots because we like pro wrestling, especially by a fucking pro wrestling company.
You know, not all wrestling fans are like that. There are people like Tim and I, and then there are people like Anthony Arkham.
Oh, can we not?
Sorry with that.
Can we not? Do we need to talk about we'll save that for later. No. So this movie, they make these two characters. They actually make play these two characters as they think that wrestling is a fucking shoot. So they're running around. They're trying to find Jimmy King because they're upset that he lost his title.
This whole movie plays it like a shoot.
No, but it doesn't. It really doesn't because they literally have. They show them talking it, and they're calling it in the ring, and then they literally have Jimmy King say, "You know, wrestling's a show like dancing, right?" So literally, they don't try to portray wrestling as a shoot, which is where I think that's, to me, that I've always said that's where No Holds Barred kind of fails. Is No Holds Barred plays wrestling as a complete shoot, which, I mean, it is what it is. But Ready to Rumble's problem, again, is that it makes fun of its target audience when you're trying to watch it. Thus, it's going to piss off the people that are watching it. And then, of course, for better or worse, as a marketing ploy, like you said, they gave David Arquette the goddamn WCW title in actual WCW. Not WCW Ready to Rumble. Not a movie version of... I don't want to say real WCW because, that would...
Well, WCW, no stranger to making bad decisions.
Well, and the thing is, by the time the movie came out, WCW was already dead man walking. They were all, as Shivani has called it, they were a coffin on roller skates by that point.
Wasn't it before the movie came out, they were already doing stupid shit like Bret Hart having a shoot thing on Mad TV and then carrying it over to Nitro? I think they'd already done the angle where Scott Steiner, or was it Rick Steiner, had a feud with Chucky. Oh God, yeah. See, WCW people.
As we like to say, WCW everybody. But yeah, so part of the problem with this movie is, had the movie been out 2 years earlier, where they had when the NWO was hot and all that, maybe possibly might have made a decent thing. But by this point, WCW was getting their ass kicked on week-to-week basis in the ratings. They were already a company in tatters.
Well,
so
it was their own fault because that'll put butts in the seats.
Well, they were already in massive trouble by the time Shivani made the infamous butts in the seats call. People say it was just that. It wasn't just that.
They were burying themselves long ago.
They were already burying themselves. When you have
75% of your roster part of the NWO or the LWO or the NWO Wolfpack, I mean, like, what can you do?
They were overextended. They were Bischoff, like Thunder. Bischoff never wanted to do Thunder in the first place. Turner Broadcasting forced them to do Thunder. Ted Turner forced them, said, "I need 2 hours of primetime wrestling during the week on TBS." It's like, we can't. Like, Bischoff was like, we can't do it. It's like, we've already got these guys. And part of the reason that they didn't want to do Thunder is because part of the contract structure in WCW was you only, like, all the big name guys like Hogan, Nash, Hall, Sting, Flair, all were only booked and scheduled for a certain amount of dates.
Isn't that was a Thunder he got the title on too, wasn't it, David Arquette?
It was a Thunder he got the title on.
Jesus.
But the problem with Thunder was a lot of the main event guys were working on contracts where they only were only scheduled in for a certain amount of dates. So you can't have these guys appear on Thunder, because if you have them appear on Thunder, then they can't appear on Nitro. Because we only booked them for 60 or 70 dates a year or whatever. So basically they only, like Hogan basically was only booked for Nitro and pay-per-view most of the time. And even then, Hogan didn't even appear on every pay-per-view sometimes. He actually did not, he was not even in the building in June of 1997 in the Mark of the Quad Cities for the Great American Bash. He flew into Chicago the next night to do Nitro because, of course, Nitro gets Hogan and gets Dennis Rodman on it in Chicago. We get, well, Great American Bash.
Well, you know, not everybody can give us good shows. Like WCW didn't. I think it was the only show they ever had here.
No, they actually had WCW had a house show here in 2000, I believe. Hold on. We're going to Google this because there was a house show in WCW in 2000, and there was a house show in 94. Let me see. WCW, Moline, Illinois. Cage match. WCW Great American Bash. We got the Great American Bash. Frick.
Well, let's put it this way: when it comes
to
shows,
they did Thunder here too.
Oh no.
Okay, so here it is. The last WCW house show in the Quad Cities, and I know we've talked about this on the show before, but it wasn't with Adam, so I'm gonna see what Adam thinks of the show. I'm surprised you didn't go to this in 2000.
That's part of my era. I didn't care about WCW because.
So here's the matches: 3 Count and Tank Abbott.
Oh God.
Defeat the Young Dragons.
Oh God.
Crowbar defeats David Flair. Big Vito defeats Norman Smiley for the Hardcore title. Corporal Cajun defeats Juventud Guerrera. Chronic, Brian Adams and Brian Clark, defeat Chuck Palumbo and Sean Stasiak, the Perfect Event. Here's one that will boggle your mind. General Erection, a.k.a. Hugh Morris, defeats the Total Package Lex Luger.
Oh.
Mike Awesome defeats Rick Steiner. Kevin Nash defeats Scott Steiner. And in the main event, Booker T defeats the Cat Ernest Miller to retain the WCW World title.
And people still wonder why WCW went under? That's why.
This happened.
I mean, WCW buried themselves.
WCW, everybody. Yeah, I remember going to that house show and was like, why am I here? This was July of 2000, so actually it was July 29th of 2000, so we're almost 18 years ago.
That's probably the only win I can give WCW in terms of shows here. They gave us the pay-per-view. WWF has WWE.
We've only gotten Raw or SmackDown, and in the recent years we've only gotten house shows. But no, this WCW house show was like less than a year before WCW went under, and I remember it not being well attended. Unfortunately, it does not have an attendance number here, which I would love to know.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say not a lot.
I remember going to this show. They did have the Nitro Girls at the show. I remember that. I will always remember Lex Luger getting beat by Hugh Morris. It's like, who booked this? And why?
Nobody's smart.
The infamous thing about this show, this is also a show where the Cat yelled at former SCW Commissioner Chris Angle and told him to shut up, Hambone.
Is that how he got that nickname?
I don't know how Angle got the how Angle got the nickname, but
Hambone.
Yeah. Is this?
But I mean, yeah, we haven't had a good show here for a while, not televised anyway.
We haven't
the last televised one we had was SmackDown. We went to that.
We haven't had Raw in a while, or SmackDown. The last SmackDown we had here was, I think, the one that me and Doug were in the front row for. That had King of the Ring.
Oh, yeah.
I did see a great wrestling match of Van Hammer versus Kaz Hayashi at the iWireless Center for WCW once. Also, got to see Rick Steiner versus Sick Boy and Sid Vicious versus Lenny and Lodi on a show. That was on a
Sid Vicious.
I got free tapings to a Thunder taping in when I want to say it was 98, 99, July of 1999. They taped Thunder. They taped 2 episodes of Thunder here, and they pretty much papered the arena to try to at least fill the lower bowl with people. So I ended up getting. We were at the mall like 2 days before the show, and there was a booth set up where they were quite literally just handing out free things of tickets. Would you stop looking at Stacy and Tori and pay attention?
I'm listening.
Yeah, you were looking at Stacy Keebler and Tori Wilson on the TV. Granted,
who can blame me?
Yeah.
Okay. Not to mention Trish Stratus and
Trish Stratus and Lita. This was definitely an era where these ladies were looking roll tide as hell. Alex isn't here to yell at me for stealing Conrad Thompson catchphrases, so it's I seriously thought about talking about all the stuff on this episode where that Alex wouldn't let me, but I'm sure he's probably
the Young Bucks.
Well, among other things, but I don't want to have Alex calling me the second he gets back from his honeymoon and screaming, "What the f did you do with this episode?"
Whatever we want.
Well,
he's not here.
Alex is out enjoying himself. I hope he's rested. He was still pretty exhausted when I talked to him earlier this morning. It was a long day yesterday, but a very, very fun day. We'll talk more about that next week when Alex gets back. When Alex and Margaret are back. But yeah, so wrestling movies, WCW. I mean, we've talked about it. I've been watching the G1. It's we're only 2 days in, but we've already had some fantastic matches. Yesterday we had the opening day. We had Okada versus Jay White. Folks, I will say this. I said it on the G1 preview. If you didn't listen to that, Jay White is the second best heel in the business behind Tommaso Ciampa. It's the guy is doing some next level stuff. He's getting massive white hot heat in New Japan. Dude, why is Mick Foley out here for his second match of the night? It's like Mick's like, hey, can I go ref these girls who are gonna take their clothes off?
I mean, I'd volunteer for that.
Oh, can we talk about that? Margaret's not here, so I'm even gonna do the defense like Margaret does of what the F are they doing here? This era, as much as the women looked great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look at the era now. Wrong panty matches to what we have now for women's wrestling.
This
elevation at the highest.
You imagine trying to pitch this in 2018? Oh boy. But in 2001, I'm not gonna lie, 2001, 20-year-old me probably thought this was great. We get this is probably also the only match on this show where all 4 people got a babyface reaction.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Look at Tori trying to butter up Mick. Some guy in the crowd's got a giant sign that says "We want panties." It's like, dude, oh my God, what misogyny in professional wrestling? Oh, thank God we've decreased it.
There's definitely a lot of things that they could not get away with today.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and watch these pay-per-views. This Invasion pay-per-view, I put it on just to kind of have background while I was waiting for you to get here, and the fact that they're doing it on this week's Pritchard show. This pay-per-view was not good. There was A couple good matches, one of which we just watched, the Jeff Hardy versus RVD match.
Let's be honest here. The whole Invasion thing was not good.
Well, I actually just talked about it with somebody. The problem with the WCW Invasion is you try to do an invasion from WCW without Ric Flair, Sting, Nash, Hall, Hogan, DDP was here.
None of the good.
Goldberg. So all your main event WCW guys were sitting at home collecting all their Turner money. And you can't necessarily blame them for that.
No, not at all.
You don't have Scott Steiner. I've already said Flair, but yeah, most of your only main eventer that came over was Booker T. So how do you do an invasion when you don't have half the guys? It's pretty much impossible to do.
You have guys like Hugh.
Yeah,
what?
We end up with Hugh. Is that humorous?
Oh God!
And they tried to liven it up by using the ECW guys as ECW, but it didn't work. This whole angle probably goes down in history as one of wrestling's biggest failures. Now, the one thing I will say about this angle in 2001, go forward about a year and watch SummerSlam 2002. Actually, watch anything from that era, from about WrestleMania X8 until Survivor Series, and you're probably watching some of the best wrestling that you're going to find in any era. I always go back and tell people, SummerSlam 2002 with the first TLC match, and Angle Hogan was on that show.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I'm trying to remember, was it Rock and Lesnar? That 2002 SummerSlam is probably one of the best wrestling pay-per-views, top to bottom, you're ever going to find. It had a great match of The Undertaker versus Test.
Oh yeah.
Cricket.
That did happen.
Hey, not everything was perfect. But yeah, you had like Eddie and Benoit. It was like, yeah, SummerSlam 2002. If you're a wrestling fan that hasn't seen it, if you haven't seen it in a while, go back and watch that one. I've probably rewatched that pay-per-view almost more than anything. I've watched it probably four.
Go back and watch a good match. Watch Armageddon. Can't remember what year it is. Regal will probably fix it for me. Eddie Guerrero versus John Bradshaw Layfield.
Only watch that match if you don't mind the sight of blood, because there is a lot of it.
Eddie goes a little too deep on the blade job.
Oh, that was one of the nastiest matches
But still, it's a damn good match.
That, I don't even think this match is on the WWE Network. The Terry Funk Sabu barbed wire match. I don't think Terry Funk and Sabu's barbed wire match is actually on the network. That would be something I'd be interested to see if they would put up in Hidden Gems at some point, with an extreme warning label on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, did you see what the Hidden Gem was this week?
I did not.
Black Saturday.
Oh my God.
They put up the World Championship Wrestling episode where it's 1984. You're a wrestling fan in the state of Georgia, and you're expecting to see, Ole Anderson and Ric Flair and all those guys, and then all of a sudden you turn on TBS, and there's a guy, and he introduces a guy, Vince McMahon from the World Wrestling Federation, and this guy with a New York upper East Coast accent comes on your TV and starts talking about guys like Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch and S.D. Jones, and the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine. I know they said that TBS was flooded with hate mail and calls. You gotta imagine what that had to be like for a fan in Georgia. You're used to your Southern wrestling, and then all of a sudden, here comes Vince McMahon.
And you know what that's called?
What?
Foreshadowing.
Well, the thing is, this only, and I'm hoping they put this up in the Hidden Gems. I really want them to put up the entire run of episodes of that, because part of the problem was from the get-go, Vince McMahon promised Ted Turner a studio wrestling show, and he just aired clips from other shows, which pissed Turner off. So Turner, Turner eventually buys Vince out of World Championship Wrestling and sells it back to, and gives it back to Crockett. Well, gives it to Crockett, doesn't give it to Ole. They actually had Georgia Championship Wrestling still on TV. The whole time this is going on, they actually give Georgia Championship Wrestling their spot back on Saturday morning. Because they already weren't happy with Vince. So he pays Vince a ton of money, something like $1 million or something, to get the time slot back. And of course, what's Vince McMahon do with the money? That's what funds the first WrestleMania. So wrestling history without Black Saturday is probably very different. And it's, if you, I watched the show this week, and I'd watched the show before, but I wanted to rewatch it again. It's not the best wrestling show. It's like an hour long of early '84 WWE, which if you're not, if a lot of people weren't wrestling fans back then. I wasn't even a wrestling fan then, but I've gone back and watched a lot of the tape. Even in '84, Hogan's the champ, but a lot of the guys that you would know 2 years later, a year later, whatever, they weren't there. Piper, I think, is just arriving in that era. So you have this whole thing going on. They use this. It's not, the wrestling on the show is not very great, but you get the shocking moment in the Hidden Gems of Vince McMahon in front of the World Championship Wrestling backdrop with the World Championship Wrestling opening that you get with that. Have you ever seen it or not, Adam?
What was that?
The Black Saturday.
Yes, I have watched that before.
Okay.
I've seen clips way back.
Yeah, you it's not very good, but you get the interesting thing of watching the show. I like I said, I would really like to see the entire run of WWF World Championship Wrestling get put up, because I don't think I've ever seen anything other than Black Saturday.
So, we're going to discuss what happened at UFC the other night?
Oh, Jesus, do we have to?
I mean, it kind of connects to wrestling. I mean, what's this mean for the title? When your champion is not showing up at pay-per-views, it's not good buys. I don't know if they understand that right now.
Well, I'll even shoot off into the UFC for a minute. Even though I haven't watched UFC now for some time, I find the UFC to be terribly, terribly, terribly boring. I really feel like the UFC doesn't have any big money fights anymore. Hence the point why Brock Lesnar, who hasn't fought for 2 years, is going to get a world title match in his first fight back in the company.
Right, this is how I do it. They do it right. You know, Brock, win or lose, goes in there, either beats up DC or gets knocked out. Braun Strowman comes in, cashes in, and takes the title off of him.
Braun Strowman cashes in the UFC. Oh, God. Can you imagine the UFC MMA fans that hate pro wrestling if that actually happened?
They can hate it all they want, but you know what? UFC is pretty much pro wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
You got promos, you got freaking heat. I mean, yeah, they really hit each other and whatnot, but it's basically pro wrestling.
I mean, also, can somebody tell me why Brock Lesnar dressed himself in the dark to go to the event? Jesus, what was up with that outfit? No, can we please, for the love of God, don't let Brock keep the belt after SummerSlam.
Look, as much as I can't stand Roman Reigns, give him the title, just so we can be back in the company.
I'm at this point, I'm with you. Even if you have to give the belt back to Roman, just give it back to somebody so it can actually be on TV and be defended. I hate having Monday Night Raw essentially without a world champion to guide the ship. I think that's part of the problem with the presentation. If you don't have Brock Lesnar there, you're not.
There's no excitement.
There's zero excitement, and I don't get the whole thing of announcing a multi-man match for Extreme Rules and then canceling it, but that might have been a writer's decision for all we know at this point. We'll probably never find out. But just don't let... Oh, he's going to fight for the UFC. And I literally have this horrible vision of Vince McMahon saying, oh, he's going to fight for the UFC title, so we've got to keep the belt on him so that we can have our World Wrestling Federation champion be the UFC champion, too.
I'm afraid that's what's going to happen, too. I'm really afraid that happens.
I don't want that at all.
I don't want that either.
It's dumb. Speaking of dumb, Sam Roberts is on TV now.
Oh, God.
I hate that man's hair. I don't care. I don't know what the fuck that hair is. But
Fugly?
Adam, we're just about an hour. I think it's about time to get out of here. Folks, don't forget to follow the Slam Fam on all social media platforms. Twitter at SlamFam, WREST. Hang on.
Follow yourself?
Follow me. Hold on. God dang. Where's Dusty? Dusty does the plugs, man. I don't do the plugs.
Well, you know.
Dusty, where you at, dog? Dust?
I don't think we have the ability to call him down. We need Alex here.
Man, how come Dust ain't been here?
Because he likes Alex better than you.
No, Dusty always talks to me, though. Bro, I can do the plugs, bro. It's a swerve. Vince, no. Adam, get him out of here. No, Vince, bro. Don't throw me out. Don't. Thank you, Adam, for getting rid of Vince Russo. Folks, follow Slam Fam Wrestling at SlamFam WREST on Twitter. I believe on Instagram it's SlamFam WRES. Margaret runs the Instagram, so I don't. Follow me on Twitter at SCBRegal444 and follow the Off the Chest of Timothy Regal podcast at Off the Chest TR. Adam, what you want to plug your social media?
You can follow me at AdamG18 if you want to.
At AdamG18. Folks, don't forget. Also, don't forget coming up the SCW show this. We got SCW show this week. SCW Red, White, and Blue is gonna be out at Walcott this Saturday. Hopefully, me and John G will have an SCW preview show up this week. I gotta get in touch with the band Who Counts 3 and get a time scheduled. Hopefully, we'll be back next week. Alex will be back. We'll find out. Alex hopefully will be all recovered from his wedding and honeymoon and be back.
I will be back next week. I'll be back probably a week after All In.
Actually, you'll probably be back the week before All In if my plan goes to fruition. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag on that completely just yet. Anybody wanting to know about New Japan, check out. I will have, hopefully, the plan right now is to do a midway break report of the New Japan podcast. Hopefully with, again, possibly a title and maybe some other surprises. But things are coming to fruition. It's definitely exciting. I think I'm forgetting to plug something else, but oh darn it. This is why Alex is...
Follow Margaret.
Well, you can follow Margaret at Bells in a Cell. Everybody, if you have not, go wish them congratulations. Yesterday was a beautiful day. I cried a little bit. We had a lot of fun. Shout out to all of the wrestling fam who came out and joined us. But that is it. Off the Chest, Timothy Regal, done. We'll see you Saturday in Walcott for SCW Red, White, and Blue.